time on our transfer window policy. We've debated whether or not our strategy is flawed. I think you and I both agree that it is. I think it's reckless and irresponsible to do this. And we talked about, lamenting about quality of play. So we've talked about individual players in the first couple of weeks. We've talked about Daniel and Enoch now, and now I suppose we talk about Mr. Pochettino.
Well, and let's not let Mr. Mitchell off the hook, because this is the guy that's supposed to be the savior to help us identify the talent that Poch wants.
But he may very well have done his job perfectly. I mean, his job is to identify, right?
But why would he have come to a club that's not going to back him in identifying what we need?
Well, the short answer to that...
And again, we don't know.
Well, if that... The answer would be is that he was sold a bill of goods. Is that he was told, you know what, we're going to heavily slant to your rankings, to your work with the manager. You've given the manager and you've worked and coordinated with the manager on a core group of players, that surround the needs that we have, and you've ranked them, and now and I'm going to buy them. And the truth of the matter is that we haven't. And I know there's been a lot of talk about net spend, and maybe this is a simple function of Joe just saying, I'm not putting a dime in here, and you sort this out, and you deal with your cash flow, and you sell players to buy players, and you should have enough. And we did say, hey, look, he's got enough to sell it. And I'll say this about Daniel. He's done a pretty good job of selling these players. I mean, he really has. To get what he's got for some of these players, particularly Soldado, to get $10 million for him, to get the fee that he got for Capuy. He made money on Stambouli. It's actually been, I think I was being pretty conservative, for the most part when I did all that transfer window work, and he was right around where I thought he would probably...
Well, and we know there are still two players for sure that are not in Poch's plans, and there's still an asterisk on Townsend's name. But, Lennon and Adebayo, they don't have squad numbers, and they're still with the squad.
Yeah, and when you have no pace, it certainly begs the question, why wouldn't you play Aaron Lennon? I mean, how many crosses did Lamela whip in? So
did he play? Did he play on Saturday?
Well, he was. Oh, which by the way, and I don't know whether you've seen this, but our friends at eSpurs, and I did see DeMarzo. He's the big Italian journalist. There's very strong rumors this evening that Lamela is going on loan to AC Milan.
I saw that.
Yeah, I don't know whether there's any truth to that or not, but that seemed to be the sexy tweet a couple of hours ago.
Yeah, there was someone, I don't know if it was Walker, who had said that the guy's going to be a superstar, but it's like Soldado. We've given them every opportunity to succeed. We want them to succeed. We gave Soldado his blessing. He goes and scores in his debut for Villarreal, which we've all said is Spursy. Let's temper that.
We all knew that was going to happen. I'm surprised he didn't score a hat trick, to be honest.
Yeah. The hat trick probably would have been better because, again, the pessimists have said, well, he scored in his debut for us. Well, that was a penalty, and you would expect strikers to be the ones to step up to take those, and he scored his first two penalties. But he's scoring from open play, and I think that's a little different. There's some different dynamics there. But the bigger issue is Lamela. We discussed it last week. He has made no impact ever as a substitute for Tottenham Hotspur. He had his starting opportunity. He made no impact. And I don't think anything's going to change. He's light on the ball. He gets knocked off. Yes, he does track back, but we saw last week all he ever did was foul. So I just don't see him fitting in with what we want. And I sense that growing frustration with the club as well as the supporters.
Yeah.
This is just not going to work out for you, lad.
Yeah, he did something that I got really pissed off about. In the first half, I'm going to go ahead and use the C word, Chairs. I'm sorry. He pulled a cunt move. He stamped on Schlupp's ankle so badly. It was so completely unnecessary. It was so deliberate. He got a card. It wasn't really very well. Wasn't really well advertised, but Atkinson gave him a card. And I just thought about it. I'm like, what a cunt for doing that. It was just like, I would never, like, if I was the opposing team and I saw that, I'd be up in arms.
Yeah.
It disgusted me that he did that. And I just thought, I just have a hard time really falling in love with a player that does stuff like that.
Well, and he's done stuff like that before.
I know.
Whenever
He's a chippy guy.
Ground,
he's a chippy guy.
Yeah, when he goes to the ground and feel that it's a foul, he's remonstrating to the referee like he's just had his legs taken from him, and like just grow up and act like a proper footballer. And this is coming from someone who's probably the worst footballer out there when I played.
Dirty tackler.
I am a dirty bastard. But, when you look at the pros, you really expect to see some model behavior. And look what Diego Costa did. He was up to his tricks for the second week in a row.
I saw the headbutt, yeah.
Yeah, and right in front of Clattenburg, and Clattenburg didn't have the balls to send him off.
Yeah, no,
but anyway, I digress. Lamella, for me, that boat has sailed, and he needs to be on it. And if it's going to Milan, let it happen. It could be a lone move that could benefit the lad and give him his confidence. He comes back and he runs rings around everyone else on the pitch. But I don't think it's ever going to happen. And I think we've got enough feedback from other people, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, to tell us that this is probably the right course of action.
Yeah, I just don't really view him as a threatening player in the Premier League. I don't dispute his individual talents. I don't think he's going to work well in this system, and that's probably a great segue to sort of get back to Pochettino, because a lot of people will say, well, he's just not, he's not being used right, and the manager's not getting the most out of him, and should be sort of building stuff around him or building tactics around him. And I don't know, it just begs the question. We hired him for pressing, fast-paced, flowing football, something that fits in the style of Spurs. So I ask you, Simon, do we have that?
Nope.
Have we?
I think there have been times where last season we did demonstrate that, but they were so few and far between, and we've kind of latched onto them as the defining moments of our season. We played Arsenal off the pitch in the home match, and we did a pretty good job for the majority of the game at their place. And then obviously the Chelsea game on New Year's Day was pretty phenomenal. But then we have some absolute turgid performances, Man United away. Newcastle and Stoke at home, where we looked like we were strangers, and we've started to see that now. And before we went on air, and I hate to bring it up, but it was a topic of conversation in last season's podcast, and I did say, look, he's going to go through the summer window, he's going to get the players he wants, which we're not entirely sure if that's happening. But at what point beyond that does the spotlight switch from Levy to the manager and the performance of the team? No excuses anymore. And if the results don't come, is this mirroring what happened to AVB in his second season? AVB, he had Gareth Bale, he had Defoe, he had Adebayor on fire, and despite some off performances here and there, we were challenging for fourth spot up until the last game of the season. Poch was in sixth spot up until the last game of the season, managed to snatch fifth, and probably flattered to deceive a little bit based on some of those performances we talked about. Well, now we're into the second season. The honeymoon's well and truly over, and forgive me for all of you who are out there saying, well, we've got to give the guy time, we've got to give the time. He's got to have some rebuilding seasons. And I get that, we'd like to see that, but we have to also expect a certain level of performance, a certain level of results. And if they're not happening, the pressure will mount on him very, very quickly. And then we're all suddenly going to forget that, and we're going to turn on him in a heartbeat. And I don't want that to happen. I want to see the results, and I want him to have the personnel to be able to do that. So right now we're not seeing any of that. There's nothing there to make us optimistic. And here's a very valid point. A lot of people have now thrown out, well, if this is the plan to fund the stadium by being frugal in the transfer market, then should we expect mid-table mediocrity until the stadium is finished, we move in, and we can start investing in the team? And I say that's a load of old bollocks, because Arsenal didn't do that. They still managed to perform, stay in the Champions League, compete for trophies, challenge the rest of the top four while they built that stadium without heavily investing in players because they had a damn good coach. And there I am complimenting the Wenger. Stepping down off the soapbox, over to you, Sam.
Well, this is a toughie because I've always been such a believer in stability, and I've always viewed this. Well, I viewed the manager's role at this club somewhat of a black hole, with the exception of Harry. It's been exactly that. It's been an absolute death knell. It's been a miserable job ultimately for managers to take, and it's a little bit of sort of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Do you earn some time because you get some performances, or do you get some performances because you're given time? And the one thing I can say about this, which is probably the biggest reason why I'm not willing to sort of chuck it in on Pochettino, is he has never had his players. But what sucks about this window, with 5-6 days to go, mind you, is that it doesn't look like he's still going to get his players. I mean, if you look at the cadre of players that has been brought in since he has been manager, I guess Stambouli you could say he gave his blessing on. But if you look at this window, it's been all defenders, with the exception of Njai, which I kind of feel like was a player that we ended up settling for. I mean, I really have to wonder how advanced was he on our list early in the season.
Right.
So, yeah, if the plan was, hey, look, we're going to back him and we're going to give him players, that certainly hasn't happened. But I'd like to think that a manager should be good enough to be able to get results with what he has. And in fairness to him, he got 5th last year. And we're 2 games into a season, and he's just got one more starting defender, and we've gotten rid of a lot of dead weight. So I guess my point is this. The jury is still out, as well it should be. It's disconcerting that the level of play is so tepid. It's so unorganized. It so struggles to produce. I mean, how many goals have we had? We've had 3 goals in two games. Is that right?
Yeah, 3 goals scored, 4 conceded, yeah. And the same 3 fixtures last year. 3 goals scored, 6 conceded, but we did have 1 point more because we had the win.
Yeah.
And that was at Leicester.
So I certainly understand and appreciate those that lament at the just drab and dour play that we're experiencing here, that we're having to witness. It's tough, but it's early. But you said it when we were chatting beforehand. This keeps on going, and he could be gone by Christmas. He could, and I just can't sit here and tell you whether he should be or not. I just think it's too early.
And again, I don't want people to take it out of context. I'm saying that's what should happen. I'm just saying we know this club, we know how it operates, and despite our calls for some continuity and some tolerance as we rebuild, I'm not sure if that's in Levy's makeup.
No, I agree. So think about this. You say you fire him tomorrow. Say he just comes in and walks in the chairman's office and says, one big F you, and he gets fired. So what are you going to go do? So you go get Frank de Boer, and why would you have any reason to believe that this just won't repeat itself again? Doesn't have his players,
Yeah.
Doesn't fit in the system, needs time. It's just.
However, I'll go back to the one-day Ramos season. 2 points from 8 games. In comes Harry, turns it around.
I agree.
And moves us up the table from the danger zone. Yeah. What did we get that season? 8th. If it hadn't been for a couple of dodgy results towards the end of the season, we could have probably got the UEFA Cup that season.
Yeah.
Following season, he takes us into the Champions League with pretty much the same players. He added a couple. But, even Harry went through the same bullshit. We had that transfer window, and who did we bring in, right?
Oh,
Nelson
and Saha. Yeah, that was a joke.
Right, and there we were being whispered as title contenders, and we bring in those 2. Saha had a great debut. I think he scored the 2 against Newcastle. Yep. But I think that was about it, right? One at Arsenal, which that was the game we capitulated in as well. But my point being, it is down to the coach at some point with the players. And if the players don't get what the coach wants, then you've lost the dressing room. And I don't want to say that's going to happen, but we got to be very cautious. It could happen if we continue on this average mundane output of football that we've seen these last 3 weeks. And you're right, it is early days, but we've played Stoke and Leicester. Take out your